Hey, what's up, YouTube? In this video, I'm going to be continuing my preview of the 2018 NFL Draft. Today, looking at the defensive line prospects that make up this NFL Draft. I covered edge earlier in my preview videos, and what I mean by defensive line is I looked at 3-4 outside linebackers and 4-3 defensive ends for my edge prospects. What I mean by defensive line, I'm looking at 4-3 defensive tackles in a nose tackle position for a 3-4, as well as 3-4 defensive ends. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, more of the interior guys on the defensive line. But these are all guys that are exclusively defensive line prospects. So getting into that, my top 5 interior defensive line prospects for this 2018 draft class. At number 5, I have Taven Bryan, defensive lineman out of Florida. Looking at his strengths here, he's got very good measurables for the position. Allows for a lot of versatility and how you can use him scheme-wise. He's 6'4", 291 pounds, 33-inch arms, so pretty decent length for the position. And he ran a 4.98 40, 30 reps on the bench press, a 35-inch vertical, 4.48 second 20-yard shuttle. These are all very good measurables. He's very athletic for his size. And he's a guy that can play in either as a 3-4 defensive end and 3-4 scheme, or as a 4-3 defensive tackle in some schemes, or maybe if you want, you can put him as a 4-3 defensive end. He can kind of be a run-stopping edge player for you on the edge. But I think he's more of a fit as an interior guy at this point. What I like about him, he's got very great snap anticipation. He gets off the snap pretty well. Very good burst off the line of scrimmage, off the snap, and he penetrates to the backfield very routinely. He really does a good job of penetrating, and when the play does go his way, it creates some disruption in terms of the running game. He's got a very good range to make tackles down the line of scrimmage. He can go down the hole and get the running back from behind, or make sure that even if he's not in his gap assignment, that he can get the guy going in the hole next to him, really. He's got a very good motor. That's one of the things that allows him to do this. But he also combines that with his athleticism in order to do this. So a good motor, good athleticism, very good size, very flexible in terms of the way you can use him along the defensive line. Those are some of the things to like about him. And in the passing game, he's very flexible and uses that to his advantage, where he can kind of bend against the guard or even against tackles in some matchups. He can bend at the top of his pass rush and kind of get by those guys using his flexibility to get to the quarterback. Still a bit raw in that aspect. I'll get to that in a bit. But there's a lot to like for Bryan in terms of the potential there. He's got all the physical and athletic makeup you want. He's got a very good motor. The guy seems to try hard on every single snap. So you got to like that about this kid. Now, in terms of weaknesses, he has very below average instincts and awareness overall. Like I said, he's very raw. He often bursts into the backfield with his head down, not really looking at where he's going or where the play is going. He rarely diagnoses the play in general, which leads him to get fooled often by counters and stuff of that nature. He really got easily fooled by play action pretty easily, which disrupted his pass rush at the college level. And I think he focuses a little bit too much on winning his one-on-one matchup with the offensive guard, center, or offensive tackle, rather than reading what's going on in the backfield and basing his assignment off of that. So he's got to do a better job of peeking into the backfield, diagnosing first, and then figuring out what his move is going to be and just reading and reacting. Right now, all he's doing is relying on his athletic ability in terms of that. Also, in terms of weakness, he's got very below average girth in terms of his base. He's going to have to add a lot of mass in his lower body because he has a really hard time anchoring against double teams and against larger, more physical offensive linemen. And this really causes him to get pushed around at the point of attack and get pushed out of the hole pretty routinely. And even though he'll be quick off the line to burst to the backfield, that lack of strength allows him to get pushed around where the offensive lineman can still kind of win the matchup by pushing him where he wants him to go, even though he beat him into the backfield. And just like I said, he's very raw. He relies exclusively on his athletic ability. He needs to add better hand usage and more consistently. And as a pass rusher, he really lacks a plan with what he's going. He doesn't really have a go-to move. And when he does lose his first initial move, doesn't really have a counter to kind of counteract against that to get to the quarterback. And with all that said, he's just a guy who had very little production. I think he only had 5.5 sacks throughout his entire career at Florida, which is very disappointing despite his incredible athletic ability and upside. My pro comparison for Taven Bryan is Darnell Dockett, who formerly played for the Arizona Cardinals back when they went to the Super Bowl, if you remember, in 2008. Very good 3-4 defensive end. I kind of see him being kind of that type of player in the NFL. Where he's going to get drafted, I think he's a guy that's going to be drafted late first round, early second round. I think a team's going to take a chance on his potential and athletic ability in the first round, but he could slip to the early second round due to the fact that he's still a bit raw. But bottom line for me, Taven Bryan is an extremely raw prospect, but he's got a very high upside overall. Bryan's versatility in that he can play a variety of positions in different schemes at the next level, like I mentioned earlier. I think his best fit is in an aggressive blitzing 3-4 scheme that relies on lots of twists and blitzes as a defensive end in a 3-4 scheme. However, he will need to do more than just rely on his athletic ability and will need to be coached up to use his hands more and diagnose plays a little bit better at the next level. Coming in at number 4 for me, moving on. I have Tim Settle, nose tackle out of Virginia State. In terms of his strength, he's a very large man, perfect size for the nose tackle position. 6'3", 335 pounds. Those are both very good measurables for the nose tackle spot in either a 3-4 or 4-3 scheme. He's very quick and agile for his size as well, which I really like. He does a very good job of getting off the snap, very good at reading the snap and making sure he's very quick there. And he's not just a one-gap player. He can play 2 gaps in any system, really. Again, like I said, he's got very good short area quickness for a big fella. And he's got potential to be a very good 2-gap stopper, run stopper at the next level. And he also has the athleticism to make plays down the line of scrimmage outside of his gap assignment, which again, I really like. He has a very good job of really running down the line of scrimmage to catch running backs on maybe outside zone runs, things of that nature, getting into the backfield, penetrating in that way. He plays a very good pad level. He's often very low off the snap. Doesn't really get very high, won't get pushed around very often in that sense. He's a very energetic player, very good motor, which you got to like for a nose tackle. He has the strength to take on double teams pretty easily at the next level. There are some struggles with his technique, which I'll get to later, but in terms of the strength and the ability to take on double teams, he definitely has the ability to do that at the next level, which is a necessity for nose tackles. He gets off single blocks routinely. If you're going to block this guy with one guy, it might not go too well for you as an offensive lineman. He's got the strength and the ability to fight off and get off and shed blockers in single block situations. And he did show some flashes as a pass rusher in terms of having a bull rush, using his hands to get past people. He does have potential there, I feel like it, even though he's more of a nose tackle prospect. Now, in terms of weaknesses, Settle carries a lot of bad weight on his frame, mostly in the midsection area. He lost a lot of weight over the offseason to kind of get into shape, but he's still carrying some of that bad weight with him still. He needs to turn that into muscle, I think, to be successful at the next level because even though he has a lot of size and a lot of girth to him, it's not a lot of muscle necessarily in some areas, which can be exploited by professional offensive linemen at the NFL level. He is very good when he has his wind, but he gets tired easily. So he's going to have to work on being better conditioned at the next level. If he doesn't get in better condition, he may limit him to being more of a 2-down player in terms of just being a run stopper. It'll definitely limit his snap count for sure, which limits the impact that he'll have throughout the entire course of a game. And he plays very hard. Like I say, he's got a very good motor, but because of this, he kind of finds himself coming off balance every now and then. He needs to work on staying square a bit more. Like I mentioned, he kind of, doesn't stay square all the time when he's facing double teams, which kind of allows him to get pushed around a little bit. And he needs to keep his feet under him a little bit more and rely more on his technique rather than just kind of launching out and trying to use his full weight at the point of attack right away. He needs to do a better job of staying square, staying balanced overall. And I fear that if he can't develop any pass rush ability, that he may just be a situational run stopper at the next level, which is going to limit his upside overall. So in terms of a pro comparison, I compare him to Damon Harrison of the New York Giants, who, as you might recall, he's a 4-3 nose tackle. He played a little bit 3-4 when he was with the Jets, but he kind of compares to him in that both are just dominant run-stopping, big, nasty dudes who play hard and can do a lot of run-stopping in the middle of a defense. I think he'll go somewhere in the second round because he does lack a pass rushing ability at this point, even though there is potential there. He's more of a nose tackle, run-stopper guy. So bottom line for me, I think questions about whether Settle can maintain his weight and stay conditioned and develop a pass rush will definitely push him to the second round when it comes to the NFL draft. However, Settle is the prototypical nose tackle prospect in this draft class. He's the best guy by far. He can play in a 3-4 or 4-3 scheme and can contribute right away as an athletic, space-eating run stopper at the next level. Moving on to my number 3 interior lineman prospect for the defensive line, I have Maurice Hurst out of Michigan. Looking at his strengths here, he's very, very explosive off the snap. He anticipates very well. He penetrates into the backfield routinely. That's not going to be a problem for at all. And he has the ability to get very skinny in the hole to get into the backfield. Just a guy that can penetrate very easily, very quick overall. He's extremely quick for a defensive tackle. Blockers are going to have a very hard time getting their hands on him, which means he's going to win a lot of matchups because he's just too quick for them in general. He covers multiple gaps with ease. Definitely a two-gap run stopper. And he can get down the line of scrimmage with ease. Like I mentioned, for a lot of these guys, he can chase down running backs from behind pretty easily. He's very quick, very fast for an interior defensive lineman. And I really like that he has a very good motor, and he generally plays at a very good pad level as well. Knows how to stay low for the most part. And I think where his main potential lies is in the passing game. I think he can be a very dominant pass rusher as an interior defensive lineman. When he has everything going right, he has a very good use of his hands. It's almost like watching a boxer at times with the way he uses his hands. He's got very good quickness, like I mentioned. It's really tough for guards and centers to handle. That's just going to be a handful for these guys at the next level. He's extremely quick overall. He can dip and he can bend around guys at the top of his pass rush. And he's just very explosive when rushing the quarterback. Very good first step, very good get off. And combine that with his quickness, he's going to be a handful for a lot of guys once he refines his technique and becomes a little bit more consistent. Now, where the weaknesses lie comes with his size. He's very undersized for the position. 6'2", 282 pounds, doesn't really have the necessary length that you want. That's very small for a defensive tackle. And that makes him a little bit scheme-specific. Actually, he's very scheme-specific in general. I think he's a guy that's going to be limited to being a 3 technique in a very aggressive 4-3 scheme where he's going to be asked to be more of a pass rusher than run to stopper at the next level as a defensive tackle. He's got more of a slender frame on him for a defensive tackle as well. So that may mean he may not be able to add as much weight as you would like him to in order to put, as some guys like to call it, more sand in his pants in a fashion. He may not be able to anchor as much at the next level because he just doesn't have the ability to put on that weight. This is going to lead him to get dominated at the point of attack because he's just undersized in that sense. Once linemen do get their hands on him, he does struggle to shed blockers. So even though he's got the quickness to make sure that guards and centers can't get their hands on him for the most part, once they do, it's pretty much game over. He's pretty much out of the play right there. And he gets pushed out of the hole a bit too easy once linemen's hands get their hands on him first. And in terms of his pass rush, like I said, he's got very high upside there. But he needs more consistency in his one-on-one matchups. He shows flashes of being very good with his hands and winning one-on-one matchups, but often for production-wise at college, he relied too much on twists and stunts, basically the defensive coordinator scheming him to where he's running full speed and able to use that quickness to his advantage. He has to do a better job of developing one-on-one moves at the next level. And this is kind of this next weakness I have for him here. It's kind of got asterisk marks on it a little bit, but he had a heart condition discovered at the NFL Combine. Luckily for him, it hasn't been. It's been found that it really won't be anything serious and it won't be recurring going forward in the future. And that he will be able to play without any problems generally going forward. However, some teams might view that as a giant red flag. They might put him off their board in general or lower them on their draft board. But in terms of being a pro comparison, I compare him to John Randall, formerly of the Minnesota Vikings in the 90s. If you remember, very dominant interior pass rusher, very quick, very good motor overall. I think he's very similar as a prospect there. I kind of seen some flashes of John Randall in him. In terms of a draft range, I think he's a guy that's going to go late first to the third round. It kind of depends whether teams view that heart condition, as a factor or not, and whether that affects their grading of him. I think without the heart condition, he's easily a first-round prospect, though. Bottom line for me, though, a heart condition at the Combine may unfortunately force Maurice Hurst to slip a bit in the upcoming draft. However, Hurst has rare quickness to be a disruptive interior pass rusher. Even though he lacks the size and can be pushed around a bit, this makes him scheme-specific as a 3 technique in a 4-3 scheme. However, Hurst's potential to wreak havoc makes him very intriguing as a prospect overall, in my opinion. Moving on to number 2. Talking about the opposite here, I have Vita Vea, defensive tackle out of Washington. And just start with the strengths here. Like I said, he's an absolute opposite of Maurice Hurst in that this guy's an absolute mammoth of a man. 6'4", 347 pounds. And he's got very good strength at the point of attack as well. Put up 41 reps on the bench press at the NFL Combine, which was the second highest at the NFL Combine. He rarely gets pushed back. Even though he might not dominate as much as you want at the point of attack, like I'll get to later for his weaknesses, he will not get pushed back. He's too big, too strong for you to physically overpower him. And speaking of overpowering, against smaller linemen, he will just absolutely overpower these guys at the next level at times. He's just incredibly huge. And what's really freakish about this guy is he combines this with unusual agility and athleticism for his size. He's almost like a dancing bear out there, it looks like. He has the ability to be a two-gap defender at the NFL level. He can pursuit down the line of scrimmage. He can catch guys down from behind. And he did show the ability to tackle athletic ball carriers in space, which for a guy of his size, that's just nothing short of incredible. He shows potential as a pass rusher as well. He can absolutely bully guys on his way to the quarterback in terms of his bull rush because he's just got great size. Once he gets his motor going and once he gets to top speed, it's basically impossible for you to stop him. When he uses his hands also, when he does a good job of using his hands first and does a good job in disengaging off blocks, he can get off blocks with ease in both the running game and the passing game. He just got a sky-high potential to be a dominant force. Now, in terms of weaknesses, from what I saw of Vea on the tape, he's very inconsistent. Often he will flash and have just an insanely dominant play where you'll just say, wow, like, who is this kid on the field? And then you just won't notice him for the next couple plays. He'll just disappear. You'll question I question whether he's got a consistent motor at the next level because I feel like watching him, he should be a lot more dominant than he is right now. I'm not sure if it's coaching. I'm not sure if it's a motor thing. I just feel like with his amount of ability, he should just be a much more impactful player consistently. He's very raw in many aspects from what I've seen. Like I say, he doesn't really utilize his hands very well. He's very inconsistent in that. He struggles to diagnose at times. I think his instincts and awareness is a little bit below average at this point. He can get a little bit high. His pad level can be a bit too high at times, which is one of the reasons why he can't consistently win at the point of attack despite his immense size and strength. And for a guy as big as he is, he struggles with double teams way too much. Double teams should not be that much of an issue for him with how big he is. But due to technical issues, mechanic issues, and motor issues, he has to struggle dealing with double teams at times. It's definitely alarming for a guy of his size. Another thing with him is get off is below average. Doesn't get off the snap very well. Doesn't really have a quick first step. And like a lot of these guys, I fear if he doesn't develop as a pass rusher, he may be only a two-down player at the next level, just a situational run-stopping guy, which would be very disappointing considering his immense talent level. In terms of a pro comparison, I compare him to Dontari Poe. Dontari Poe is a prospect who was a mammoth athletic beast coming out with pass rushing potential, and he eventually proved to be a pretty good pass rusher in Kansas City as an interior nose tackle, and pretty productive with the Falcons last season. I compare him very similarly to him. In terms of where he's going to go in the draft, I think he's a guy who can go either in the top 10 to middle of the first round. It depends on how much teams are willing to use their projection for him rather against the production for him. Because the projection is top 10 level, but the production to me screams more late first round. But I'm kind of in the middle where I think he's more of a mid first round prospect. So me, bottom line, Vita Vea's potential is as massive as his frame. It is rare to find linemen with his size to be as agile as he is. Vea is still very raw in many aspects of his game at this point, and he may be more of a projection at this point going forward. But Vea's size and athleticism with the right coaching could unlock a very dominant force along the interior for many defenses at the NFL level. And now, number one for me, my number one defensive lineman in this class is De'Aaron Payne out of Alabama. For his strengths here, he's got very good size with a very filled out proportional frame for a defensive tackle. He's 6'2", 311 pounds, very strong base, very strong in his lower body overall. He's just impossible to move. Um, Lyman, I've never seen him get blown off at the point of attack ever. And he combines his immense strength and size with extremely good athleticism for his size. He ran a 4.95 40 at the NFL Combine, which is very good for a guy of his size. And just what you got to like about this guy, he is just absolutely dominant in the run game. He's going to be a dominant run stopper at the next level. That strength in his lower body allows him to anchor very well. He can take on double teams with ease. You're not going to move him off his spot very often in a double team situation. And he's very technically sound where he can shove blocks very easily, get off of blocks when the running back is approaching him. And he just engulfs ball carriers. It's like a magnet where you see the running back go in his direction, and immediately Darren Payne is off his block, and you don't see the running back anymore. It's just Darren Payne. He's just got a hold of him, and the running back just disappears. That happens so many times at Alabama. Teams just decided to run away from him at Alabama in the college level because he was so dominant as a run defender. And he does a very good job. He's not just a guy who's just focused on his gap when the running back goes near him. He diagnoses plays very well. He's very smart for a defensive tackle. He knows where the play is going, typically very well. And generally, he has very good awareness overall. And I remember the play, I forget whether it was the national championship or the game before in the semifinal, where he hit an interception off a batted pass. That type of awareness this guy has. And you saw his athletic ability in that play, too, when he returned it for such a long time. Just a freak of nature in that sense. Like I said, he's very technically sound. He uses his hands very well to disengage off of blocks. And his feet are always under him. He never gets off balance. Very rarely gets off balance in terms of both the passing game and the running game. And while he's more of a run stopper at this point, he did show some potential as a pass rusher, where he does have potentials to be a very dominant bull rusher at the next level. Now, in terms of weaknesses, like you said, even though he did flash as a pass rusher, I think he might be a little bit limited at the next level because he doesn't have elite get-off. Even though he's very athletic, he always doesn't make plays down the line. He's more of a guy that he handles his responsibilities in his gap routinely, but he doesn't really make plays outside of that area. So despite the fact that he's athletic, he's more of a guy that just makes plays where he is. That's why his numbers weren't particularly high at Alabama because it's really reliant on if you run towards him, he's going to make the play pretty routinely, but you can have success running away from him if there's less talented players around him at the next level. Like I said, he doesn't really change direction very well despite his athleticism, and his get-off is average, like I mentioned. So in terms of a pro comparison, I compare him very similarly to a Linval Joseph of the Minnesota Vikings. Linval Joseph, even though he's not the greatest pass rusher, he does have some value as a pass rusher. He's just a dominant run-stopping force in a 4-3 system. He can play the 1 technique or the 3 technique as a run stopper. So that's kind of where I see him. In terms of draft rank, he's a guy that I think can go middle of the first round to late first round. He's just too talented to leave the first round, in my opinion. And it kind of depends on whether teams see him developing a pass rush or not. So bottom line, Darren Payne has the natural strength, awareness, and technique to be a dominant run stopper at the next level. Payne is a very good fit in a 4-3 scheme, and he may lack the length to be a true 3-4 defensive end, although I think he can play there in a pinch. Payne's may never be an elite interior pass rusher, but he is by far the best run stopper in the draft, and he would instantly improve any defense by his presence alone. So those are my top 5 for defensive linemen. Now, I'm going to give you a sleeper as well here. I think one guy to look out for is Nathan Shepard out of Fort Hays State. He's got very good size and length. He's 6'5", 315 pounds, and I think that projects very well to be a 3-4 defensive end. He's got very good athleticism for his size, and he flashes as a pass rusher well. You kind of saw this at the Senior Bowl where he made a lot of plays in terms of the practices and drills there. It shows that he definitely belongs amongst the NFL players. He is a bit raw. But he could develop into a very good impact player at some point. It just may take some time. I think he's a guy that will be available in the 3rd round overall. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the upcoming class for defensive linemen in the NFL draft for 2018. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. And of course, thanks guys for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe that would be huge. Thanks, guys, for watching.